Hello, folks. Welcome to the channel. I am yours truly, and today we're going to look at the AP Top 25 and get my reaction whether the teams are just right or just too high on the list or too low on the list. Yeah, I can give my opinion. Whether my opinion is an educated opinion or uneducated opinion, that's up to you guys. But before we get into it, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate your you hitting the subscribe button and giving the video a like or a thumbs up. It'll go a long way to help the channel out. Yeah, for a channel this size, as you can see, we don't have a lot of here, but I aspire to be one of the bigger college football YouTubers or YouTube podcasters one day. But until that happens, you know, we're here at the bottom of the totem pole. So, anyways, for the fans that have stuck around, you've noticed that I haven't been putting out content past couple weeks or so, or I guess it's been a couple weeks. The reason is that there's just not a lot of content out there right now worth talking about. Yeah, I could have talked about the whole Stanford, Cal, SMU to the ACC thing, and I almost was going to make a video about it, but I kind of had a feeling that there was just not a lot of merit or a lot of not motivation, but a lot of momentum behind it, and it further proved that with the ACC voting no to add them teams. I could have talked about what's going on in Iowa and Iowa State as they're more players getting accused of gambling, and that's a very serious crime according to the NCAA and their rules for me, but not for the standards of rules. Yeah, I don't want to get into a personal rant about the whole NCAA and this, I guess, this statute of law. And then I could have also talked about what's going on with what's another thing that's I could have talked about the Pac-12 and Mountain West merging, or the Pac-12 and American merging, but right now there's just not a lot of known facts or speculation that's kind of solid right now, so that's developing, let's just say that. So anyways, let's get into the AP Top 25. Now, the AP Top 25 preseason rankings, they mean as much as a rotary dial phone in today's age. Yeah, they'll get the job done, but who uses the rotary dial phone now? Much less who uses a landline. If there's people still out there to use landlines, there's not a lot of people that still use a landline. Most people have only cell phones in this day and age, and why not? So it gives us a good guide, I guess, if you want to call it that. I think it gives us a good guide on where teams are going to be starting the season based off what the media thinks. Now, I do think some of these teams are too low and some of them too high, and some of them are just right where they need to be. So anyways, enough of me rambling on, and let's get into the top 25. And people wondering, before I get into it, people are wondering, why are you posting it like a week later? Well, like I said, I'm going off the spirit of better late than never, so cut me some slack here. At least I'm trying to make a video on it rather than not talk about it at all. So anyways, let's get into the top 25. I think the top 5 they're pretty much where they need, or pretty much accurate. Starting with Georgia at 1, yeah, that's a no-duh pick right there. I don't think there's any other team that you could put above Georgia right now. Maybe in Michigan, and yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good slot to put them at. Number 2, Michigan. Yeah, that's another good slot to put them at. They're probably second most talented team all around in the country, I think. Number 3 is Ohio State. Now, Ohio State, I see it at 3, but I can also see them being as low as 5. Um, they have a ton of talent at wide receiver and running back and offensive line. I'm just a little weary of Ohio State on defense. Now they did get a little bit better last year than the year before, but they still were exposed at times during last year. Looking at the Michigan game, for instance. Number 4, Alabama. You gotta know that the media is gonna hype up Alabama. I think Alabama of the top 5 here. I think Alabama is probably the weakest of the top 5, but I digress. The media is gonna just hype up Alabama because it's Alabama and Nick Saban. I'm not shitting on Nick Saban at all. I think he's the greatest coach of all time. But I just looking at the roster on paper, it doesn't scream out the number 4 team in the country. Number 5, LSU. Yeah, I kind of have to agree with that. LSU won the West last year. And basically beat the brakes off of Purdue in the bowl game. Now, LSU could be inconsistent at times. Last year, very inconsistent. But I think they belong here. Number 6 is USC. Now, USC, I think, is a little bit too high, in my opinion. I think USC needs to be like an 8 or 9. Yeah, they're going to return a ton of talent, and Lincoln Riley's arguably the best offensive-minded head coach in the country. But like with Ohio State, there's still a ton of questions about their defense. Their defense at times was being gashed up and down the field. The only way USC was able to survive was off the turnover margin. They had the best turnover margin in the country last year. Outside of that, their defensive numbers were in the 100s. Yeah, that's just how bad the defense was in statistical yardage. Number 7 is Penn State. Now, I think Penn State might be just a little bit lower than they should be. I think Penn State should be at 6 if I had to make a top 25. Because Penn State, they beat everybody on their schedule but Ohio State and Michigan. And they lost to Ohio State. They kept the game with Ohio State pretty competitive all the way down to the end. And then with Michigan, yeah, they just fell off in the second half. But I think Penn State is just a touch lower than they should be. But it's basically nitpicking here. Now here's the most bold take I got. Number 8 is Florida State. I think Florida State's ranked too high. Way too high. The reason I say this is because Florida State they're returning just about everybody on the roster, plus adding a couple pieces in the transfer portal. That's not why that's not why I think they're ranked too high. I think they're ranked too high because the media is basically pushing them to the front, or boosting them, I guess. I don't want to get into a personal rant. That might be another video about how Florida State fans are delusional, and I think Florida State fans need to shut up about the college playoff. You need to first win the ACC first, then talk about winning the college playoff. But I digress. The issue I have is with Florida State. Whenever last year when they went up against some better teams in the ACC, and in the country in general, they struggled mightily, and they lost to Clemson, they lost to NC State, and they lost to Wake Forest. Two of those games were at home for Florida State, and they lost. And I know they beat LSU last year. What did they do? They beat them by a blocked extra point. They, when I say they beat them by the skin of their teeth, that's about as close as you can get to beating them. I think Florida State should be like in the 14-15 range. I think they should still be ranked, but I don't think they should be ranked in the top 10. Not for the preseason. I've seen some polls rank them as high as like 4 or 3, and I think they're just insane. Number 9 is Clemson. Now, I think this is a pretty fair spot for Clemson. Clemson is, if they're not careful, they can start falling off the cliff in the ACC, and the Florida State could take the crown of the ACC. They went 11-3 after winning the ACC and blowing out North Carolina. They got their asses handed to by Tennessee in the Orange Bowl. We'll get to Tennessee here in a second. I think it's a pretty fair spot for Clemson, right around the 9-10 range, maybe 8, somewhere in there. Number 10 is Washington. Now, Washington, I think, is a bit too high for me. Maybe just a touch. Yeah, I know they beat Texas in the the Alamo Bowl, and I think that's why they're ranked so high, is because the media is hyping Texas here, and I guess for good reason this year. But usually every year they hype Texas and say Texas is back, and before they go at like 8-4 and fall on their face again year after year. But what do I know? I'm just some person with a microphone with an internet connection that's rambling about incoherent things. But you be the judge of whether I make sense or not. Number 11 is Texas. Texas is returning a lot on offense. This is probably the most talented team they've had, and this is probably their best chance to make not only a Big 12 run, but a playoff run in the Big 12. All they need to do is beat a couple teams in their schedule, and they're pretty much on the express lane to make the playoff. First, they got to make it through Alabama. And then they got to make it through the Big 12, where everybody's pretty much marked them as enemy number 1 in the Big 12 outside of Oklahoma. Oklahoma also hates them too, but for different reasons. Number 12, Tennessee. Now, Tennessee, I think, is ranked a little bit too low. I know they lost Hendon Hooker, Cedric Tillman, and Jalen Hyatt, but I think this is going to be a plug-and-play type of offense. Tennessee had one of the best years in recent memory last year. Yeah, they got their ass handed to by South Carolina and really even Georgia, but overall I think they had one of their best seasons, and it showed. They basically beat the brakes off of not only LSU last year, but they also beat the brakes off of Clemson in the Orange Bowl. Number 13 is Notre Dame. Notre Dame, I think here is how can I put this? I think they're maybe a little bit too high, but overall I think they're kind of in the right spot. They got Sam Hartman that came in from Wake Forest that put up a bunch of touchdowns at Wake Forest, ran that wacky ass offense at Wake Forest. Other than that, I don't know much about. I know Notre Dame's had a terrible first half of the season, and we wonder if Notre Dame was even going to make a bowl game. But they turned it up in the second half, beating Clemson in the second half of the season, and they ended up with a bowl win over South Carolina. Um, so, which Notre Dame are we going to get? Are we going to get the one that lost to Marshall and Stanford, or are we going to get the one that beat South Carolina and Clemson? That's the big question Notre Dame fans has got to answer. Number 14, Utah. I think Utah is about right where they need to be. Yeah, they won the Pac-12 last year, but I just have a feeling they're going to slowly lose uh, their grip on the Pac-12 and Pac-12 supremacy. Uh, I don't think Utah is going to win the Pac-12 this year. It's not saying that Utah has gotten worse. It's just everybody else in the Pac-12 has gotten better. If you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, I think right here at 14 is about where they are, because they won the Pac-12 last year, and yeah, they lost to Penn State in the Bruce Bowl, and I know I keep referring back to last year, but that's just the last known material we got to work with, and I know this year's a whole new year, new team, that but jazz, but I kind of have to base it off of last year because that's the last known material, last known source of material. Coming in at 15 is Oregon. Now, Oregon had a lot of hype last year after losing an early season matchup to Georgia, and they ran right through the Pac-12 until they hit Washington. They lost a boneheaded game to Washington, and if you don't believe me, you can just watch the tape from Washington going for 4th and 1 from your own 35 and not getting it. Yeah, that kind of what costed Oregon State a chance not only at the college playoff but a Pac-12 slot. It's some of the boneheaded decisions. Coming at 16 is Kansas State. Now, Kansas State, at first I said they were ranked too low, but taking a deeper look, I think they're ranked just about where they need to be. Yeah, they actually won the Big 12 last year because they beat TCU in the title game, then got obliterated by Alabama. And I initially thought they would be like not a top 10 team, but like 11 or 12. But after looking at what they lost, I think 16 is about where they need to be. Coming in 17th is TCU. TCU, I think, might be just ranked maybe a touch too low. I think TCU is still going to be a decent team this year, despite what they're losing, either through the NFL or through offensive or through off-season changes. I still think they're going to be a good team. However, I don't think they're going to be in contention for another college playoff run. That's the last season was like the Cinderella run for TCU. And it was basically America's team, you know. Everybody was at first trying to root for TCU to lose, but when TCU wasn't going to lose, everybody all of a sudden was cheering for TCU and being the underdog and being David versus Goliath. And they almost did it. Unfortunately, they got their hopes and dreams crushed by Georgia in the national title game. Number 18 is Oregon State. Oregon State, in my opinion, is ranked, should be ranked in the top 15. Why I say that? Oregon State ended up finishing the season at 10-3 last year, with pretty close losses to USC, to Washington, and I'm trying to think of the other team that they lost to. But anyways, they ended up getting a big-time transfer quarterback and DJ Uiagalelei. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but It's a bit of a tongue twister. I think Oregon State's going to be the sleeper team in the Pac-12. Do I think Oregon State's going to win the Pac-12? No. But do I think Oregon State may have a fighting chance in the Pac-12 to be in the Pac-12 title game? Yeah, possibly. And I think they're going to be a bit more motivated since this is likely going to be the last Pac-12 title game ever, probably. I think they're going to be motivated to win the try to win the Pac-12. I don't think they will, but anyways, at number 19 is Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin, I think, is ranked too high. Yeah, I know they hired Luke Fickell, and I know Wisconsin is probably the most talented team in the Big Ten West, and they got 2 big-time quarterback transfers, and the offensive coordinator from North Carolina last year that helped Drake May out. I'm more of a skeptical person. I'm more of a person that you gotta prove it to me that you belong in the top 25, not just believe in hocus pocus and believe in I guess magic. And this goes for Oklahoma at 20. Oklahoma last year was god awful and terrible. They barely made a bowl game and lost to Florida State, albeit a close loss to Florida State, but they did lose to Florida State. I think they're ranked way too high. I don't even think they should be in the top 25. I'm like one of these people that you have to prove it to me that you are one of the top 25 teams, not just, oh, look, they got this guy and they got this guy in transfer portal and they got a great recruiting class. Yeah, I mean, I somewhat kind of hypocritical to that, but when you're talking about Oklahoma and Wisconsin, both teams that struggled to make bowl games last year, and then all of a sudden they're top 20 teams, I think it's just pure hype from the media. Now, will they finish in the top 25? Who knows? But 21 is North Carolina. North Carolina last year was rolling. They had an early loss to Notre Dame, but they were rolling. And then for some reason, the wheels on the bus completely fell apart. Not only they fell off, but the bus was ended up on fire, screeching down the highway by the time the season was over. They lost, I think, 4 games in a row, including the bowl game. They lost their final 2 games of the season, lost the ACC title game, and then lost the bowl game. It was not a great ending for North Carolina. They do bring back Drake May, so that's good news for North Carolina. I think North Carolina is ranked a little bit too low. I think they should be at least a top 20 team to start out the season. Coming at 22 is Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss last year was another team like North Carolina. They started off really hot, and they started off at 7-0. But that was just fool's gold because after that they just fell apart. They lost 5 of the next 6. And the reason was Ole Miss's schedule last year was completely backloaded. Like, they had all their easy games in the first half of the season, and in the second half they played like LSU, Alabama, Arkansas. Who else did they play? Mississippi State. Well, I'm not saying Mississippi State's a brutal game, but they had all those games pretty much in a row, and they lost them. And then they lost the bowl game to Texas Tech. I think Ole Miss is about where they should be. Now, 23 is Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is ranked too high. Texas A&M didn't even make a bowl game last year. I think Texas A&M will be better this year. Well, I'll say top 25. Who knows? They could be the average Joe 8-4 Texas A&M team, like they always been, or they just fall flat on their face again, and everybody can point and laugh at Jimbo Fisher for how stubborn he is. Now Tulane at 24. I think this is. I think Tulane being ranked too low. I think Tulane needs to be ranked somewhere in the 20s, somewhere like the 22, 21, maybe even 20 range. Tulane, they went on a roll. I think they went 11-1 or 12-1, something like that in the regular season. Beat UC, or no, they went like 10. Whatever the case, they won a bunch of games last year. They won the American, represented the Group of Five in a New Year's Six bowl, and basically beat USC in last second fashion, despite being a heavy underdog against USC. But USC basically fell on their face again. No wonder. Lincoln Riley, you need to look at your defense before you start talking about a playoff run. But I digress about that. I think Tulane should be ranked a little bit higher than 24. And then finally, to round up the top 25 is Iowa. Our favorite 1970s style football team. For some reason, everybody loves some Iowa. I can't. I mean, I fall asleep every time I watch an Iowa game. I'd be falling out of my chair if Iowa scores more than 30 points in a game. Iowa has a pretty damn good defense, and they force a lot of turnovers. Their problem is, can we move the ball into the end zone instead of getting field goals? Damn it! God dang it! Watching Iowa offense is like watching some Bill Walsh tape back in the 80s. I swear Iowa sets college football back 25 or 30 years. The way they play their brand of football. And from what I've seen is that they're not going to change it. Kirk Ferentz has been there since the dinosaur ages, and he's got his son as the offensive coordinator. Despite them not scoring no more than about 20 points a game, he decided to keep him, and Iowa pretty much said that they rewrote the contract to say that Iowa needs to score more than 25 points a game, or his son or Kirk Ferentz's son is fired. Pretty much that's how it is. Now there's some honorable mentions. South Carolina didn't make the list. Should they have? I think they should have. Maybe like a 25 or 24. Another one was Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech should have made the list. Let's see what some other ones that were snubbed that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe Kentucky. Kentucky, I don't think should have been. There's just not a lot there to work with. What's some other ones that were snubbed? Maybe Baylor. No. What about the Pac-12? Maybe UCLA. UCLA, I could see possibly being in the top 25 to start the season off. It's just they lost a lot in the off season. So, anyways, like I said, what are you doing watching this video without hitting that subscribe button? Please, if you enjoyed the content, please hit that subscribe button. It would greatly appreciate, or I would greatly appreciate the support for the channel. As I aspire to be one of the bigger YouTubers that talks about college football here on YouTube, whether it's through like standard videos like this or like a podcast. Who cares? That's my aspirations, is to be one of the bigger YouTubers, and I could do this full time and talk about college football all day long, because I love talking about it each and every day. I'm pretty much called as a like a college football nerd by most people. So even though it sounds like I'm just a rambling idiot, you know. But anyways, if you enjoyed the video, give the video a thumbs up. Tell me you did a great job, or you can tell me kiss my ass, or whatever, or kiss your ass. I don't care. But if you do enjoy the video, consider hitting the subscribe button. It will help me out and it will help the channel out. I appreciate everybody that stay or tunes into my channel every time I upload. Whenever I upload, I try to make a habit of doing it every day, but when there's not a lot going on in college football, it's kind of hard to find stuff to talk about, and especially when this channel's not even financially backed. It's just purely me and a passion project on this channel. And I hope to get to the point one day where this channel is financially backed, whether through YouTube ads or through some other thing. But until that happens, I have to try to drive and motivate myself to become better at YouTube. So, anyways, I'll see y'all next time.